The $745 budget build we built around this graphics card we're about to show you is unbelievable, especially considering that this machine can hang at 1080p and at 1440p. Will 2025 bring about the budget PC building's hero arc? Well, let's find out together right here, right now on Robeytech. Now we're back with another budget build to show you different ways you can maximize your dollars and still end up with a game-ready rig. And this one, it really surprised us. Not only did we see 1080p gaming results around 90 to over 100 frames per second in most of our benchmarks, we also saw competitive performance at 1440p too, thanks to this new player in the GPU market, the Intel Arc B580. But it's not without its quirks. As always, we're going to talk about part recommendations, we're going to show you where to get the best deals, and we have an entire live stream, which you can check out right there, that takes you step by step on building this PC from beginning to end yourself. This is the first budget build you've seen us do. We have some rules around these PCs, which we're going to post right here on screen. They're pretty straightforward, but we like bringing them up. We also have a 5-point weight system to show how each budget build is balanced. Those categories are price, or how well we used our budget, GPU power, CPU power, parts and features, things like RGB, CPU cooler, RAM speeds, SSD performance, and finally aesthetics. Look, some builds, especially when you're spending this kind of money, are just gonna look better than others. For today's build, we have something really special. The new Intel Arc B580 GPU, codenamed Battle Mage. This is Intel's second generation discrete desktop GPU, and we have been nothing but impressed with it. And since this can shave $40 to $50 or more off of your GPU budget without really sacrificing performance, the B580 is a great option for builds like these that use modern day CPUs. So for our parts, we're going to walk through them and talk about the 5 categories along the way. Starting with our CPU and motherboard. We're going to be using the Intel Core i5-12400F with the ASRock B660 Pro RS motherboard. The 12400F is a 6-core 12-thread CPU, and at around $100, it's really hard to beat. The beauty here is that if you wanted to go to 13th or 14th gen chip, you absolutely can. As for the motherboard, we're using the ASRock B660 Pro again. It's a bit lean, but it's lean with options. While it doesn't have built-in Wi-Fi, it does have a dedicated M.2 slot for a wireless card, which you could add in for an extra $20. It also has 2 additional M.2 slots for hard drives. One of those is PCI 5, while the other one is only PCI 3, but even at PCI 3 speeds, adding secondary drive for games is not out of the question. So our parts and feature score is going to take a hit here, but remember, we're trying to maximize our budget here and spend as little as possible while still making a good system. As for CPU cooling, we're going to be using Intel's stock cooler that actually comes with the CPU. Now, in case you're worried about using a stock CPU cooler, keep in mind that the 12400F is a 65-watt CPU with a max turbo power of 117 watts. Now, moving on to the GPU, we're using the Sparkle Intel Arc B580. This thing has 12 gigabytes of GDDR6, which is unheard of at this price. It's designed to be a 1440p GPU with things like super sampling, ray tracing, anti-lag, frame generation. While some of those features are also obviously game dependent, Intel is being pretty aggressive in fighting to take over the budget segment. With the extra VRAM, potential feature set, and pricing, we're gonna bump up the GPU score a bit, sprinkle in some parts and feature points, and max out our pricing score. Oh yeah, and because Sparkle's version is blue, we're gonna give it some style points too. Now, moving on to storage, we're going to be using the Team Group MR44L 1TB NVMe drive, which we used in our previous all AMD budget builds, which you can actually watch right here. This drive balances performance and budget with read and write speeds that beat most entry-level Gen 4 drives, so some points go into parts and features here. As for RAM, we're going to be using 32 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaw 3200 MHz CL16 DDR4 RAM. This is non-RGB RAM, so that could either be a pro or a con for aesthetic points, depending on whether you prefer RGB or non-RGB builds. But with this largely being a non-RGB build, it fits with the theme. Now for a case, we're going to be using the Cooler Master Q300L V2. This is a really open case with plenty of room for building inside, and at around $50, it's super friendly on the wallet. It's also pretty versatile from the standpoint that you can either use it like a tower or lay it down on its back. Now the Q300L does come with one pre-installed fan in the rear, so we went ahead and added 2 of Be Quiet's PureWing 3 fans for front air intake. And this is important to hang onto because this experience was a bit less than optimal. So we're going to ding the parts and features a little bit here just because of the difficulty. Now finally for PSU, we're actually using something different than the Thermaltake Tough Power GF1. This time we're using the Corsair RN650. It's a 650 watt, 80 gold certified modular PSU. Since we're using parts with a lower power requirement, we can get away with this in order to bring the overall budget down. So when we put all this together, the total cost before taxes and shipping comes in at around $745. So overall, when we look at our 5 categories, CPU power lands in the lower mid-range, GPU power isn't quite maxed out, but it's close. Parts and features are balanced in the mid-range. As for aesthetics, we scored this in the mid to upper mid-range. That blue GPU through the tinted glass has a really sweet look to it. And finally, our price score shoots up to the highest score to date, making $745 the price to beat for our cheapest budget build in this series, especially price to performance. But that could change in the near future, or maybe not. All right, let's talk about performance. We ran an assortment of 10 games to get an approximate idea of how this build would perform at 1080p and 1440p, which we're blazing new territory here with our budget builds. We're going to throw the charts up on the screen and talk about them as we go. Now, starting with 1080p numbers, in Starfield we saw an average of just under 72 frames per second. In Black Myth Wukong we saw an average of 45 frames per second. In Forza Horizon 5 we saw an average of 100 frames per second. In Marvel Rivals the average was just under 83. In Indiana Jones and the Great Circle we saw an average of just over 77. And in Cyberpunk 2077 we saw averages just over 94 frames per second. Red Dead Redemption 2 averaged just over 90. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 averaged just under 136. Grand Theft Auto 5 was just at an average of 105, and Fortnite we saw just over 188 frames per second. Now when we look at upscaling, we see those numbers take our budget build into the 90s and 100 for the FPS at 1080p. For games that had XeSS, we used it whenever there was an option. However, when it wasn't, we used FSR. There were a few titles like Modern Warfare 3, Marvel Rivals, and Black Myth Wukong that allowed us to use AMD's fluid motion frames for frame generation. So bottom line, at 1080p, the B580 handled games like a champ. But what about Intel's claim of 1440p performance for every gamer? Well, at 1440p in Starfield we saw averages of just over 57 frames per second. In Black Myth Wukong we saw averages of 40 frames per second. In Forza Horizon 5 we saw averages of 83 frames per second. In Marvel Rivals those averages were just under 63. In Indiana Jones and the Great Circle we saw an average of just under 56. In Cyberpunk 2077 we saw averages just under 63 frames per second. Red Dead Redemption 2 averaged just under 83. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 averaged over 98. Grand Theft Auto 5 just under an average of over 109. And Fortnite we saw just over 162 frames per second. For upscaling here, with the same strategy applied to 1080, we saw 1440p numbers hit north of 60 in most titles with the help of XeSS and FSR. Now with these numbers and with the build experience, we have a few comments that are absolutely worth mentioning, especially if you're looking at following our build guide. And again, with everything we're about to tell you, understand that this is a $745 gaming PC. It's gonna have a few quirks, but that doesn't make it bad. So thing number one, let's talk about the case. We've used the Cooler Master Q300L V1 in other builds and it was fantastic. So we made some assumptions about V2 that we shouldn't have when planning this build. Now if you watch the live stream, you're gonna see that we had some issues mounting the front fans in the Q300L V2, as the mounting holes in the front of the case, though they did line up with the fan, the screws were just too big, which we found kind of super odd. See, this is kind of what happens when we stretch the rules, but we absolutely wanted to make this build. While the case is super open, which is helpful to builders in small cases, you're gonna wanna be thoughtful with cable management. Otherwise, the thing is gonna look super messy. And be aware, even though it is very open, the Sparkle GPU we have right here is 315 millimeters long. And it's close when you have those front fans installed. It fits without an issue, but just something to be aware of. But you know what, with the case only being 50 bucks, it's not bad. If you're gonna use the Intel cooler, which we used in this build, these are great for a good time, but not necessarily are they reusable. In other words, because the standoffs use basically plastic retention pins, if you're planning on swapping CPUs or taking your cooler on and off for any reason, you may break a pin like I did originally, and you just have to get another cooler. So once you remove it, don't plan on reinstalling it. And thing number three, after we built and tested the system and sent it on its merry way, we started testing other budget build systems with the B580 with a much more modern CPU. And we saw some noticeable improvements in performance all around. This seems to be one of ARC B580's quirks and something to be aware of if you're using an older CPU, but it works perfectly well with the 12400 that we've got now, and you'll see it with much more modern CPUs in upcoming builds. And with that, we're going to close out the rundown of the Robeytech All-Intel Arc B580 budget build. Now, if you want a central resource for this build, pop on over to Robeytech.com. We'll have all the details and product links, as well as the charts and everything else that you need to take the plunge. Also, don't forget our in-depth step-by-step live streams, which we've pointed to and shown you before. And please let us know if you've built this one, and join the Robeytech Discord if you have any questions along the way. Now, if this configuration doesn't quite match what you're looking for, maybe you have a little bit more budget, or maybe even a little bit less, guys, we have way more on the way, including stuff with 50 series and so much more. And we have some really fun ideas and challenges for this series that you're not going to want to miss. Now, we'll be building these systems live over at twitch.tv/Robeytech or at Robeytech Live right here on YouTube, and we'll have breakdown videos like the one right here on the main Robeytech channel. So slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here at Robeytech. Thank you so much for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.